Sorry, we're closed.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. Episode 59 of Sorry We're Closed. I am your host, Mr. Patrick James Light. And guys, we got some great news for the restaurant community, the restaurant business, the indoor dining, all of those things as we're progressing out of this pandemic. New Jersey, as of this morning, lifted the curfew and then also increased indoor dining capacity to 35%. This means a lot to a guy who's a small business owner. I own two polar opposite restaurants. One's a sushi restaurant. One is a bar. The no curfew helps the bar. The capacity helps the restaurant. So the capacity being a little bit higher changes the game a little bit for there. So we're able to kind of serve more people throughout the evening, obviously in a safe manner still, but be able to serve more people throughout the evening and therefore make some more money and help us progress out of this pandemic. On the flip side, the curfew for Green Rock allows us to stay open later. You know, most people want to come out, even if they have to sit and social distance and wear a mask when they get up. Even with all those restrictions, they still would prefer to come out around 10, 11 o'clock at night. And now being able to do that and go into 1, 2 a.m., although it may be difficult to police some of these rules at certain times. It's been difficult to police them sometimes when we've been in regular times or in even more restricted times during 10 o'clock times. So I'm looking forward to having all of this be done. Looking forward to getting back and being able to make a little bit more money, be a little bit more successful for our businesses moving forward, coming out of the pandemic, especially specifically for these places in Hoboken that, we're coming to the summer months now where we tend to die off and everyone starts going down the shores. So being able to kind of, get some business in before all of that happens is extremely important for us, and I'm very happy that we're able to do so. So that's big news out of New Jersey. Big news for us. Big news for the restaurant community. I know New York City is still struggling as far as I haven't kept up with the numbers as far as COVID cases and things like that. But I know they're still not open, and I'm assuming that we will get inundated with people coming from over the river to Hoboken this coming weekend and the following weekends until Cuomo decides to open up places, which I believe he announced yesterday was around Valentine's Day, which just to give you guys a brief understanding of how terrible of a day that is to open. Valentine's Day in and of itself is one of the most popular days for restaurants throughout the entire year. Very difficult to plan for, very difficult to prepare for, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things happening. And to not give at least, I know it's a little bit COVID time, but to try to give them a couple day notice or a couple day, not notice, but a couple of days to kind of get people back in the groove, get people doing things, because a lot of people will go out, they'll have bad experiences and be upset, and restaurants don't want that. People won't come back to their restaurants after one bad experience, which theoretically they had a tough time controlling anyway. So, but. And it's good news anyway to at least get them open. I'm sure all the restaurants will be more than happy to open on Valentine's Day and wear maybe some hiccups on a big day for them rather than not be open at all for it. So you take the good with the bad. With that being said, we're going to move on to the only other thing I want to talk about today, which is Dustin Pedroia. Dustin Pedroia announced his retirement either yesterday or the day before. I can't remember. And I want to talk a little bit about Dustin. And I only had very little experience with him, but from a guy who watched that guy play growing up and then to be his teammate for a very brief amount of time, Dustin, as you all know, he's, the guy is a grinder. The guy, works harder than anyone else, does so many different things outside of the game of just baseball, instead of not just between the lines, but when he's working out, when he's doing his conditioning, when he's, just rehabbing, or if he's just doing anything at all involving his craft, he is 100%. And unfortunately, he had some injuries that halted his career. We were all robbed of Dustin's full career and the ability to play baseball for as long as he was able to. We got robbed of a few years out of Dustin's being able to watch him play. But the guy was someone that you're intimidated by, right? You were intimidated by David Ortiz, but David Ortiz, was like he'd come up and talk to you. Like I remember getting an interview and Dustin and David Ortiz puts his arm around my shoulder and starts talking, doing the interview with me. Which was wild to think about, right? And it's like, he wasn't even like a David Price, huge name, huge, success in the game of baseball. He was very friendly, very forthcoming. So you weren't, and right from the get, it was never like, you never thought that these people weren't friendly. Dustin, on the other hand, he was nice, but like he had a job to do. He was there to work, and this is what he was doing. And he wasn't like he was smiling all the time, jumping in on interviews. Like he was there to do his job, and that's what he did. And I never really had much experience with him in spring training. Whether even as a minor leaguer or then when I was a big leaguer, never really had much experience with him. So he was quite intimidating as a player, as a young player. Not to mention, just you hope that you're doing enough work. You hope that what you're doing lives up to his expectations of being on his team. And I worked hard, but I didn't work like Petey worked. And so like you always didn't want you didn't want to end up being in a bad spot with him. You didn't want him to not like you. He had a lot of pull on that team, and rightfully so. And you wanted him to want you to be a part of the squad. So flash forward to my 2016 year, which I know I've given you guys a lot of stories, and I actually just told kind of an abbreviated version of this on TikTok. But flash forward to 2016, Eddie Rodriguez is pitching on the mound for the Boston Red Sox, and Dustin Pedroia from what I understand, did not like the way Eddie Rodriguez was pitching, and it's seemingly when I never asked Dustin or I never asked Eddie how it happened, but it seemingly from what we all saw on TV that Petey had called timeout and laid into Eddie on the mound in the middle of the game because he's being soft. Like he wasn't being a gamer. He wasn't living up to Dustin's expectations of what he wants on the mound from guys. So he went over there and laid into him. And it was all like quite a sight to see because the amount of respect you have for Dustin Pedroia is, so there's so much there. And, when you don't want to disappoint the guy. I'm sure Eddie didn't want to disappoint him. Eddie has now turned into a phenomenal pitcher. He was a phenomenal pitcher then too, but he was still learning the game, learning baseball, learning how to pitch at the major league level. And it was a sight to see, and you never want that as a young guy on a team. You never want one of the veterans, not to mention one of the most respected veterans in Major League Baseball, to come over to you and light you up on national television. So that was quite the sight to see, and a lot of people talked about it. A ton of people. It was all, I was in AAA at the time, but everyone in AAA was talking about it. I'm sure everyone throughout the entire organization was talking about that discussion that was taking place there in Fenway. And it was scary. Like it was not something people were like, oh shit, like this guy means real business. This isn't, pat you back and back, whatever. Like this is the real shit here. And so then, after all those things were happening, everyone was a little on edge. And now I get called to the big leagues. And you all know my infamous Mike Trout story, which is combo with my infamous Angels story, where I'm pitching against the Angels and having probably the worst game of my career, a very short career, but one of the worst games of my career. And I don't remember which inning it was. I pitched an inning in like 2/3 or so. I don't remember if it was the first inning or the second inning that I pitched him. But I remember not doing great, maybe in giving up another double or something, giving up another hit or what have you. And I'm on the mound, and I hear timeout called. And I didn't call timeout. My catcher didn't call timeout. I looked to your first look is to the dugout, to John Farrell or Carl Willis to see if they're coming out to talk to you. But none of that. So I didn't know what was going on. And I turn around, and Dustin Pedroia is running in from second base. And now this just happened with Eddie Rodriguez. I don't remember what the time frame was, but remember I got called up to the big leagues, and for that game, that was July 2nd, that game. So we're only 3 months into the season. It had to be close by, or at least fresh in my mind. And Petey's running in, and I'm just like, oh God, like I'm about to get blown up on national television against the Angels, and I will never pitch for the Boston Red Sox again. I never ended up pitching for the Boston Red Sox again anyway, but didn't know that at the time. And Petey comes running in. I'm just like, well, this isn't going to go well. This is going to be bad. And so he runs in, and Miranda, if you're obviously watching this, make sure you put up the picture that I put up on Instagram. You know exactly which one it is. And you see now Dustin Pedroia like coming in, put his arm around me, and we're talking. And I'm just writing. I was like, "What's up? What's up, Dustin? What's up, man?" And he's like, "Hey, man." Hey. And he's like, "Listen, you're doing the best you can, man. This is just not going your way. They're just seeing the ball really well off you right now, but you're letting the people put the ball in play. It's just not. Things aren't shaking the way you thought it might be going, or the way we all hoped it would be going. But this whole game isn't going the way any of us wanted it to go. Just keep throwing strikes, keep battling, keep fighting these guys. Eventually, it will go your way, and we'll get out of this." And I was like, "All right, man. Yeah, totally. That's what I'll do." And he went back, and actually I think I got out of the inning fairly quickly after that. And I remember being like, damn, like that is, in my book, I know he won't be a Hall of Famer. He didn't play enough games. He didn't have, I don't even know if he had 2,000 hits. Like, he doesn't have the stats probably because of injury, because he, in my opinion, was talented enough to be a Hall of Famer, but just never was able to get back to that. But in my view, I just had a Hall of Famer come talk to me and be like, "Dude, you got this. You got this." And like, to me, it was almost like I belonged there. I'm not doing well right now, but I still belong in the big leagues. And like, there was a guy that understood what I was going through, what I was trying to do out there. I wasn't on the same page as Christian Vasquez as far as pitch call. But you kind of roll with it. And then you make adjustments for the next game. Just never was the next game for me. And it was such a moment where you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, all right, he respects me at least. He doesn't think I'm being a bitch out here and not doing anything, not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or not going after people the way he wants me to go after people. Like, I'm doing what's expected of me. It's just not shaking my way. And it kind of gave me a little lift. It's like, all right, okay, like Petey believes in me. Like, all right, if Dustin Pedroia believes in me, I sure as hell should be believing in me. So it was a cool little moment, and it showed me a little bit more of the human side of Dustin, in the sense that Dustin was a gamer. Dustin was never accepted mediocrity or poor performances, but he understood the game and understood how things were sometimes, and he was going to be there to help his teammates along. And I'm sure some guys like Mookie Betts and some of these guys, JBJ, that played alongside him for years. When they were young guys and he was a veteran, I bet they have stories for days about this and similar situations like this with Dustin, because he was such a good dude. And I actually was a locker buddy of his for the first time up in the big leagues, and he was very nice to me. So it was such you're terrified of the guy, and then he talks to you and you realize, oh, he's a good dude. He's just serious about what he does and how he approaches the game. It was cool. It was cool to kind of get to know. In my view, what would be a Hall of Famer if it were not for injury. He was just a really, really good guy. And like I said this on Twitter, I said in the podcast here already, we get robbed of many games that we could have seen Dustin Pedroia do really, really cool things. It's unfortunate that we will never get to see those, and injury takes it away. And I won't dive into the Manny Machado slide or anything like that, but it's unfortunate the way it all shook out for him, because he was a great person and a really good player. And I would love to have seen him play much longer and lead this Boston Red Sox team into the next chapter here. But hey, not everything goes your way. I would have loved to play more than 17 games in the big leagues, or however many games I did play. It just doesn't always go that way. So, guys, I appreciate you listening to episode 59. I hope you enjoyed episode 58 with Miranda, my producer. I wanted to get her on. I was very happy to do so. I'm as excited as it can be for this coming weekend to finally be able to open up a little bit later for our restaurants and kind of be able to, try to make some more money and actually start producing the way we can produce and be a little bit more excited. It's kind of be cool to kind of start coming out of this pandemic in a safe way. And I think New Jersey's doing it the right way, at least in my view. So happy to be where we are. I will miss getting out of there by 10 or being able to have a drink with me and my family or friends at the bar past 10, just kind of hanging out because we're closed. But at the same token, I'm happy to start going back and start making a little bit of money now and not having to just have to try to survive every single month. So I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Thank you for everything. I appreciate you guys listening. And I hope you guys have an absolutely tremendous weekend. See you guys. Thank you so much for listening to the Sorry We're Closed podcast. Go subscribe to our email chain over at thepatlight.com and follow us on all social media. Until next time, guys, I'll see you at the bar.
Sorry, we're closed.